Imagine this. You wake up each day feeling trapped in a cycle of anxiety, constantly saying yes when you really mean no. Sound familiar? Here's the kicker. Most of us think boundaries are selfish or cruel, but what if I told you that learning to set them is the simplest trick to stop anxiety from ruling your life? It's time to break free from the people-pleasing trap and finally take control of your emotional health. Stick around, because in this video, you'll uncover actionable strategies to create boundaries that actually work. No fluff, just real solutions you can apply today. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button, like this video, and turn on notifications so you don't miss out on more life-changing insights like this. Ready to rewrite your story? Let's dive in. Anxiety, difficulty with boundaries, and common behaviors of anxious people. Anxiety has a funny way of sneaking into everyday decisions, doesn't it? For many, setting boundaries feels like standing on the edge of a cliff. It's terrifying to step forward, yet equally unbearable to stay stuck. Anxious individuals often find themselves trapped in an internal tug-of-war, the fear of upsetting others versus the dread of the confrontation it takes to stand firm. It's no wonder they default to saying yes to everyone and everything, only to feel overwhelmed later. This relentless cycle of people-pleasing frequently leads to task overload, followed by emotional shutdown. Think about someone who takes on too many projects at work, only to call in sick because they can't cope. Or the friend who eagerly agrees to every plan, then cancels last minute because the thought of attending feels unbearable. These patterns aren't random. They're survival mechanisms, albeit ones that don't always serve well. What's truly heartbreaking is how often anxious people sacrifice their own needs in the name of avoiding conflict. Whether it's skipping a workout to help a coworker or staying silent when a friend oversteps, the cost is steep. Emotional exhaustion, resentment, and a growing sense of disconnection from their true selves. But this doesn't have to be their forever story. Boundaries might just be the compass they need to navigate out of this maze. Definition and concept of boundaries, and the importance of boundaries for mental health. Boundaries are the unsung heroes of mental health. Think of them as a fence with a gate. You control what you allow in and what stays out. They're not about building walls, but about creating a space where your values and well-being thrive. For instance, saying, "I don't respond to work emails after 6 p.m. protects your personal time, ensuring you recharge and stay present with loved ones. At their core, boundaries are deeply tied to personal values. If kindness, for example, is a value, your boundaries might reflect patience without tolerating disrespect. By defining what's acceptable, you also reduce the mental chaos of indecision. It's much easier to say no to something that doesn't align with your priorities than to wrestle with guilt every time someone asks for more of you than you can give. Moreover, boundaries are not just personal, they're relational tools. They set the stage for healthier, more respectful connections. Imagine how freeing it is to know where you stand with someone because they've clearly expressed their limits. Without boundaries, anxiety thrives. With them, you create a roadmap for emotional resilience and self-respect. And as we'll see, clarity is a cornerstone for making these choices easier. Clarity as an antidote to anxiety. Clarity is like a flashlight in the dark. It cuts through the confusion that anxiety loves to create. When people define what truly matters to them, decisions become simpler and their mental load lightens. For example, if someone values family over social status, they'll find it easier to say no to late-night work events that conflict with family time. Clarity empowers action by aligning choices with values. Anxiety often feeds on indecision, creating a loop of what-ifs and second-guessing. But when priorities are clear, those endless loops lose their grip. Think about the difference between juggling 10 vague goals versus focusing on 3 that resonate deeply. By narrowing your focus, you reduce stress and open the door to progress. Tools like journaling or asking reflective questions, such as "What brings me peace?" can help uncover these priorities. The beauty of clarity is that it acts as a guide, not a dictator. It allows for flexibility while giving structure to decisions. Take someone who's unsure about accepting a new job offer. By revisiting their priorities, perhaps financial stability or work-life balance, they can weigh the options more confidently. It's not about erasing anxiety, but using clarity as a buffer to calm its effects. And yet, even with clarity, myths about boundaries can create roadblocks. Let's uncover them next. Myths, false beliefs about boundaries, and personal reflection before setting boundaries. Let's face it, boundaries get a bad rap. One common myth is the idea that setting boundaries makes you selfish or unkind. For instance, saying no to a friend's request might feel like a betrayal of kindness, but the truth is, boundaries are a form of respect, both for yourself and others. If you're drained and overwhelmed, how can you genuinely give to others without resentment creeping in? Another misconception is that boundaries are about controlling others. In reality, boundaries are about managing your response to others' actions, not dictating their behavior. For example, saying, "If you interrupt me, I'll end the conversation," isn't about silencing someone, it's about protecting your peace. True boundaries empower both parties by creating clarity about what's acceptable. Before setting boundaries, reflection is key. Ask yourself questions like, "What makes me feel valued?" Or, "When do I feel most drained?" These insights act as a compass, helping you define what you need and why. Regularly revisiting these questions ensures your boundaries evolve with your priorities. Up next, we'll dive into practical steps for turning these reflections into actionable boundaries. 3 steps to establish boundaries. Setting boundaries doesn't have to feel like navigating a minefield. The first step is to communicate your needs clearly and assertively. Instead of hinting or hoping others will just understand, state what you need directly. For instance, saying, "Please lower your voice," is far more effective than silently enduring or reacting angrily. Clear requests reduce misunderstandings and foster healthier communication. Next comes creating if-then statements, a powerful way to reinforce your boundaries without resorting to conflict. Think of it as drawing a line in the sand. For example, "If you continue to criticize me, I'll leave the conversation," puts the focus on what you will do, not on controlling the other person. This approach keeps the emphasis on your actions and limits, which you can control. Finally, consistency is a secret ingredient that solidifies boundaries. The first few times you enforce them, you might feel uncomfortable or even guilty, but stick with it. Consistency sends a clear message that your boundaries are not negotiable. Over time, others will adapt, and you'll find that anxiety fades as your confidence grows. Speaking of confidence, let's explore how well-defined boundaries look in action. Practical examples of well-defined boundaries. Boundaries come to life through real-world examples, making them easier to grasp and apply. Take work boundaries, for instance. Declaring, "I don't respond to emails after 7 p.m." isn't just about unplugging. It's about prioritizing mental health and family time. Or imagine a freelancer stating up front, "Payment is due within 14 days of invoicing." These examples demonstrate how clear communication prevents misunderstandings and protects personal limits. Personal boundaries are just as vital. Picture someone who values their privacy saying, "I don't lend my personal items, like my laptop." It's not about being stingy. It's about preserving trust and autonomy. Or someone might state, "I don't discuss my relationship problems at work," to maintain professionalism and avoid unnecessary gossip. These are simple but powerful ways to uphold self-respect. In relationships, boundaries nurture respect and connection. For example, telling a partner, "If we're arguing and it gets too heated, I'll step away to cool down," can prevent conflict from escalating. Similarly, saying, "I don't tolerate being interrupted during serious conversations," sets the tone for more meaningful dialogue. Boundaries create a sense of security, paving the way for deeper and healthier connections. But what happens when challenges arise? Let's unpack that next. Challenges and benefits of setting boundaries as an empowerment tool. Setting boundaries can feel like climbing a steep hill at first. discomfort, guilt, and fear of upsetting others often bubble up. For example, declining a friend's request to borrow money might lead to an awkward silence or even disappointment. But here's the thing, letting go of the need to please everyone is the first step toward emotional freedom. It's about choosing self-respect over temporary comfort. One of the greatest challenges is learning to let others take responsibility for their own emotions. Imagine telling a coworker you can't stay late to help with their project. They might feel frustrated, but their feelings aren't yours to manage. By standing firm, you empower them to solve their own problems while protecting your own energy. Over time, this shift reduces conflict and builds emotional resilience. The rewards of boundaries are transformative. They boost self-confidence, enhance clarity, and improve relationship quality. Think of a person who consistently enforces their limits. They exude calm and decisiveness. By focusing on what they can control rather than trying to change others, they reclaim their energy for personal growth. Allowing others to stumble and learn fosters independence, making boundaries a tool not just for protection, but for empowerment. Now that you've unlocked the secret to setting boundaries, the real question is, will you use it? Imagine how much lighter life could feel if you stopped overcommitting, took back control of your time, and prioritized your mental health. What could you achieve if anxiety wasn't holding you back anymore? So here's your challenge. Start small. What's one boundary you can set today to protect your emotional well-being? Share it in the comments below. I'd love to hear your plans. And don't worry about getting it perfect. Progress beats perfection every time. Remember, boundaries aren't just limits. They're acts of self-love and empowerment. Let me know how this resonates with you. And if you have any questions, drop them in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with someone who needs to hear this message. Let's keep this conversation going. Your growth starts now.